Lampard's thoughts. We'll hear more about the Chelsea-Brighton game later on in the show. But first of all, let's hear from the Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp ahead of the champions' first game of this season.
Winning the league last year is actually the best problem you can have, to be honest. Yes, it's if it's a problem, I don't know even. But everybody gives me the feeling that it should be a problem. So because anybody else wants, or everybody else wants to become champion as well, that's no news to me. So I knew that before, and so we just give it a try again, and we know we will face incredibly strong teams. We don't have to think in this moment about the whole season. We have to think about Leeds, and there's enough to think about, honestly, because it's a Premier League team but new in a Premier League with this, but really a Premier League team, quality-wise, and with a world-class manager and an incredible, intense idea of football, and we have to be ready for that. So that's what I'm thinking about, and not too much about the rest of the season.
Well, the 30-year wait is over for Liverpool fans and those Liverpool players as well. And Jurgen Klopp, they'll be delighted that they got their hands on this trophy. It now has the red ribbons on it as well there, Owen, next to you. But the thing is they're going to want to go and win it again. They want to retain this title. How difficult is that? You did it at Bayern Munich.
You know what? I think it's one of the greatest feelings ever is to play a full season with your teammates and all the staff and to be able to lift the trophy. But one of the strangest feelings I ever had in a football game was after we won the Champions League in my first year as a pro, lifted the trophy, we were celebrating, and I remember I was sitting with my family after and I thought, is that it? You know, I thought I would feel different. But you know what? Actually, it's like as a kid you get a medal, it's a beautiful feeling, but actually you got to kick on. The next day, you still got to wake up, you got to do the business again. So for these guys, they've been amazing. Yeah, they really have. One of the best seasons I've ever seen from a team, but they got to do it again. And to do it again means they could create a dynasty, be one of the best teams ever in the Premier League history. So, and I love Jurgen Klopp and Jordan Henderson. Every time they step on the pitch, they outwork every team pretty much they play against. They have probably one of the best team ethics I've ever seen from a team created by Jurgen Klopp. And they'll give it a right go. They're my favourites to do it. And if they don't get any injuries, I think they'll do it. But I just love the fact that these guys, they don't rest on their laurels, and they're going to be special.
We can talk about off-air, what's it like to lift a trophy, that feel. I never did it. Jay, Owen talks about kicking on. Yeah. You know, a lot's been made of hardly any movement in the transfer window for Liverpool. How do they kick on? Owen's playing for some great sides, and under Fergie, United would buy one or two to kick on. Yeah. Liverpool, the link with Thiago, who knows if that's happened. What do they need to do? Because they've got a lot of great players in the positions, best players in the world in some of the positions. How do they kick on?
Well, it's quite interesting that obviously the transfer market doesn't close until October. I think people are forgetting that at the moment. I think Liverpool still might do something in the market, but I think what they're doing is they're thinking, right, we're in a strong position here. Also, financially, it's a little bit tricky, obviously, with COVID and everything else. I mean, they've been quite honest about that maybe they don't have the funds available they'd want to have. So they're not going to jump into the market because they don't need to jump into the market. They've got a strong squad. They've got a squad that are motivated. They've gone and won the Champions League and gone and won the Premier League. They know the value of retaining that Premier League trophy and becoming one of the few teams that have done that. Obviously, City did it, Manchester United 2009, 8-9. But it hasn't happened very often. So, as you say, creating this dynasty will be the motivation. It will be not just we got the title back for the first time in 30 years. It's what we're going to do with it now. And I think they're a mature group of players who know this is the peak of their careers now. So if they're at the peak of their careers, they have to keep winning things. And that's not just about winning the title, but retaining the title. But I think what's interesting, though, I do think they're very smart in the way they acquire players and they buy players. And because they're in a position of strength, I think they will wait a little bit longer to see what happens in the market, see if there's value in the market. Now, they're denying the Thiago Alcantara deal, but I think they're denying that deal because of the price at the moment. Now, if Thiago stays at Bayern Munich much longer, then the price might have to come down because he's made it clear he wants to go. Bayern Munich will not really want him to see out the rest of his contract and go for free. So it could be that price comes down. So I think Liverpool is such a position of strength. They don't need to sort of scramble around like everyone else is. And that's, if I was a Liverpool fan, that's a comfort I'd be taking in their position at the moment.
You say they don't need to strengthen, Jason, but from your perspective, Owen, having been in a side that's won the title, how important is it to freshen up that squad, to have new faces in if they want to try and retain it?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important, especially for the experienced players, to have the young guys coming in kind of, keeping it light, keeping it fresh, pushing some of the older players, and also for the younger players to learn from the older players in terms of passing on, kind of the traditions of a football club. So Rio used to be on at Sir Alex all the time. Boss, who are we going to sign? Boss, who are we going to sign? You got to bring somebody in. And you're talking about teams that have, have won the Premier League and won the Champions League, because it's not about. I think Liverpool do that better than anyone. They don't just sign quantity like a lot of teams do. They just get quality. Go get one or two that make a difference, like Alisson and Van Dijk. And I think the problem with Liverpool is they're hard to improve that starting 11. So a Thiago does. Having seen a lot of him, I just think he's a fabulous player. Even though he's 29, I do that. But I still think they've got Curtis Jones, who he's a fabulous player, and Harvey Elliott.
Yeah, you mentioned young players, but they've got Nico Williams, Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott, Ryan Brewster. To be 3 or 4 players there who they think will come into that first team mix, who might get more game time, who might put some of the pressure on. The question is, are they good enough? And I think that's the sort of.
I think they're good enough. I'm not sure they might not be ready enough. Yeah. I think there's a difference.
Yeah. So that's the balance that Jurgen Klopp's got to strike, isn't it? Whether or not he can bring those players in, because you're going to have so many games. Has he got a strong enough
in a
squad?
short period of time as well?
But isn't the reason Liverpool have done so well, because if we all know their starting lineup, as always alluded to, that is the team on the pitch. The 11, and they've done it for back-to-back Champions League finals, 3 and 2 years ago. And then, obviously, in the league, 196 points, I think, over 2 seasons, because the starting 11. If you break up that front three, because they are, as a unit, incredible, the back four, 2 of the best full-backs in the world, the best centre-half in the world, one of the best goalkeepers in the world. Gomez, I know we give away a penalty for England, but he will be a fantastic player. So it's the midfield area. And as you say, Thiago would improve that starting 11, wouldn't
he? He would, but he's different. And I think Jurgen Klopp is so smart. He's built around the fact he's got great goalkeeper, best defence, and the front three are world class. So it makes, if you go get a number 10 in that team, it affects the balance of the team.
Firmino will be to drop in, will he?
It affects the balance. So I think he's complemented that defence and attack with 3 hard-working guys. You're right, Thiago improves it, but I think the only worry if I'm a Liverpool fan is if you get an injury to Van Dijk or someone, or to Mane. Then I think Liverpool don't have the depth that say Manchester City have. So if that happens, then I think there could be an issue. But I think if they are as they are right now, I still think they're favourites.
What about them starting this new campaign then, Jason? Because if we look at the last 9 games of the season post-lockdown, they lost 2, drew 2. It wasn't really the best end to the season. You could argue that that's because they'd already won the title, the kind of, the breaks come off a little bit. They kind of just weren't too fussed about finishing the season too much on a high, you could argue. But how do you expect them to start this campaign?
I think it's a really interesting question, because sometimes with teams, you see the momentum they take at the end of a season affects them in the new season. I think if a team is struggling towards the end of a season, say for example at Crystal Palace, end of last season, they really struggled. I'm interested to see how they start this season. And Liverpool likewise, you're absolutely right. I mean, there are lots of mitigation. They'd won it, basically. It was over. Project Restart was difficult. It was a hard environment to play football in. Everyone understands all of that. It's hard to motivate the players to a degree, because they're always going to win the league. But there were moments in those games you thought, this isn't the Liverpool I've seen earlier in the season. This isn't the same team. This isn't the same intensity. This isn't the same drive from them. So they've had a break, obviously. They've had a break away from it. So they've probably had a little bit more time than some of the other clubs. So maybe you'd hope that they've got the motivation back to go again. I don't think it will be a factor. I think Leeds is a good game for them. I think it'll be a really good game. I think it's a good game for them to start against Leeds to try and put down that marker. But it will be interesting to see how they begin the season, because if there is a hangover from last season, we will see it quickly against a team like Leeds who will try and exploit it. Will
teams be more motivated against Liverpool because they're the champions? Will we see some kind of extra grit in those games?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think that Jurgen Klopp has almost prided, being on a little bit the underdog. He was in Germany with Borussia Dortmund against Bayern, and I think here they were because of, the money being spent. But people want to beat the champ. That's just how it is. And I think everybody's going to be gunning for Liverpool. But again, I think the greatest thing that Liverpool have is their mentality. I love the fact that they approach every game like they haven't really won anything. And I think with that, that's why Jurgen Klopp is the best builder of teams, because he doesn't allow the boys to rest and get comfortable. And I think if they start slow, which they could do, Jason makes a good point, they could. It's not an easy fixture, Leeds and then Chelsea. He won't let them. He won't let them rest.
I remember a Man City game when they got beeped. Somebody said to him, do you remember, was your team up for it? And he went mad, didn't he?
No,
he said,
absolutely.
What are you talking about?
Yeah,
of course, so we just didn't play well. The City were better on night. So he will be from Leeds tomorrow, will be right on it.
But it's interesting, Owen talks about the underdog thing, because already he has talked about how we can't spend the same money as Chelsea. They're the champions. We can't spend that money. We can't spend the same money as Chelsea. So he's already playing on that. We're the underdogs again, although we're the champions and we run away with it. And we're Liverpool, one of the biggest clubs in the world. We don't have the same resources as a team like Chelsea. So he's already trying to use that as a motivation, I think, in terms of saying, well, you can't expect us to win it again because look what's happened. Look what's happening at Chelsea. Look at the money they spent. Look at the money Manchester City has spent. I'm not sure that necessarily washes with the fans because they are a big club with a lot of resources. But clearly, that's kind of one of the arguments he's putting forward.
Yeah, as you say, though, the window doesn't close until October the 5th, so we can probably expect a bit more movement to happen in this transfer window still. Now, each week, we're going to pick out on a particular battle in each game, aren't we, Robbie, that's caught our eye. And this week, it's the fascinating touchline matchup between the two managers, Jurgen Klopp and Marcelo Bielsa.